Hello and welcome to Larry Has Opinions. This morning I woke up and I had an amazing idea, a video that no one has ever done before in the history of booktube. And that is going through my Goodreads profile and see what books I've read had the highest rating. Amazing idea, isn't it? Let's jump straight in. Okay, so I have to premise that any books in a series I have excluded from this list completely. And that's for two reasons. Why I don't want 7 Harry Potter books in this list, and two, because there's a strong self-selection bias where people go on to read the second and third and fourth books in a series. They're very likely to give it a really high scores because they already know they're going to like it. So the highest rated book in my list is, surprise, surprise, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone at 447. I mean, I enjoyed Harry Potter. It was fine. It's a really good book. I think I gave this 4 stars. Is that the best book I've ever read? Probably not. I have to say, maybe it's a middle grade book, and I might not be the target audience for it. But I don't know how I feel about this. Anyway, moving on. The second highest. This is a bit of a surprise for me, but it's Educated by Tara Westover. I really like this book. I gave it 5 stars. It's in my top 5 memoirs video that I posted last month. It probably deserves its place, whether it's absolutely at the very, very top, like my top 3 books I've ever read, maybe not, but it's definitely a really good one. So another memoir, Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. I gave this 4 stars. Again, it made my top 5 memoir book list. So it's definitely one I really liked. Not necessarily, again, in my top 3 books of all times, but I can see why it has such a high rating at 446. Next is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson at 444. Not a surprise, because I know that Brandon Sanderson has such a really passionate fan base, and I know how strongly they feel about Mistborn. I gave this 4 stars. I thought it was really good, but not necessarily in my top 10 books of all time. But not a surprise, and not too bad, I guess. Okay, next I have A Game of Thrones by J.R.R. Martin at 444. Probably not a surprise that it makes this list. I'm really, really happy I see it on this list. I gave it 5 stars, and it's an amazing book. It's a really, really strong start to the series, and I'm really happy to see it on this list. Next is Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind at 440. And this is an amazing book. It's probably my favorite non-fiction book that I've ever read. I gave it 5 stars. I would have given it more if I could. And it definitely deserves its place in this list. I'm really happy to see it here. Okay, next is a bit of another surprise for me. It's The Martian by Andy Weir at 440. So same score as Sapiens. It's a really good book. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. Although I'm not sure it's that good. I don't know. I'm a bit surprised to see that. I know that a lot of people like it, but I also know that a lot of people didn't like it. So I'm a bit surprised, but there you go. Okay, next I have The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien at 437. I'm slightly surprised, I have to say, that it has such a high score. I know that a lot of people absolutely adore this book, but I also know that a lot of people don't. I gave it 4 stars myself. It's a book I massively respected and liked and enjoyed to some extent, but on the other hand, it's not enjoyable to the same levels as a lot of other books where the page turners and where you really feel engrossed in the story. This is a bit of a slower pace and a bit more meandering story that doesn't necessarily appeal to everyone. So I don't begrudge its place on this list at all, but I'm slightly surprised that it has such a high score. Okay, next I have another memoir, and another one that made my top 5 memoir videos, and that's The Girl with 7 Names. And that has a 4.35 score, which is pretty high. And I gave this 9 out of 10, 4.5 stars. And I'm not necessarily sure it would make my absolutely top 10 books of all time, but in a way, I'm kind of happy to see it with such a high score because it's a really solid book, and I would definitely recommend it to a lot of people who are interested in that sort of narrative. Okay, next we have Aristotle and Down to Discover the Secrets of the Universe at 434. I gave this 2 stars. I absolutely hated it. I know a lot of people love it, and clearly that's why it has such a high score, but I really did not get on with it at all. I just found it full of cliches and a bit annoying with the way one of the characters kept calling the other by first and last name all the time. Who does that? Anyway, moving on. All the Lights We Cannot See, and that has a score of 432. I gave this 4 stars. Pulitzer Prize winner. Really popular book, has 1.1 million ratings. I liked it. I didn't love it. I'm slightly surprised again because I've heard a lot of people not loving this book. It's a good book, don't get me wrong, but not necessarily sure it's that good, in my opinion, even though I liked it. Slightly surprising because I thought it would be more polarizing, as very popular books also tend to be. Anyway, moving on. A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, 432. I also gave this 4 stars. I remember liking this book quite a lot, even though probably read a bit younger, and that's why I didn't love it. But I think I can see how in its genre, this would probably be among the best. And then The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett at 432. And I'm really, really happy to see it on this list because that's one of my favorite books ever. It's historical fiction set in the Middle Ages about the plan to build this cathedral in England. It sounds really boring when you say it like that, but it's an absolutely engrossing story and with amazing characters, and I'm really happy to see it here. Next, I have The Little Prince at 431. Another very beloved book. I'm not surprised to see it here. I guess there's probably a lot of nostalgia for a lot of people attached to this. Probably a book that a lot of people read growing up. I gave it 4 stars myself, so it's a book that I liked, not necessarily one that stayed with me for a long time, but I can see why it's on the list, and I respect it for that reason. And then at 431, lastly, I have A Little Life, and I'm really happy to see this book here, and I'm slightly surprised to see it here because I know it's a very polarizing one. I know a lot of people really, really hate it. I gave it 5 stars. It's an amazing book. Incredibly heart-wrenching, incredibly sad, but I think amazingly executed. So I'm really happy to see it on this list. Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you guys liked this video. Please do leave a comment telling me your favorite book. If you want to join our Discord, the link is in the description box, and I'll see you the next time.